All right, Sal Capaccio joining us. Sal, we need to get right to business. We have so many things to break down. How was your weekend? It was fast and furious with the Bills contract extensions, the NFL league news. It was head on a swivel Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything was happening very, very quickly. We had Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, and then, bam, Greg Rousseau happens, Von Miller happens, and then late last night, Josh Allen happens. And honestly, like, it happened 10 minutes before a planned podcast with me and Matt Bove. And we're like, oh, my God, this is great, because if we had recorded a while ago, you guys know how this works, right? You get off the air and something happens, it's way different. So just letting everybody know, we have instant reaction up. The podcast is up. We recorded it late last night. People can find that on the Odyssey app, iTunes, Spotify, Sal Sports on YouTube. You want to watch it, but everything was done, and bam, we went right at it. So here to talk about it this morning. The Greg Rousseau numbers are coming in this morning as well.
Don't forget Reed Ferguson.
That's right, and I should Reed Ferguson, and that's right. That's a big one, and part of the reason I forget, as you say, is he was actually not a guy they extended, who was going into the final year of all those groups that we talked about. He was actually going to be a free agent. However, I think all of us expected Reed to come back. It would have been a stunner if Reed didn't come back, but you're right about that. Reed's back, and good for Reed. I think Reed now, he's set up basically to play a very long time in only one uniform and retire a Buffalo Bill if everything goes right over the next 4 years, right? Which is great for him.
Yep.
He is the only player on the team now that actually spans pre-McDermott Bean. He was here during the Rex Ryan regime. He's still here, and he's going to be here for 4 more years. Congratulations to him.
Well, from the longest tenured Bill to a man that might at some point be the longest tenured Bill, Josh Allen, a contract extension for himself. They add 2 years on. We're starting to see numbers. We've seen that Rousseau creates about $7.5, $8 million in cap space. And Allen, we don't know the number yet. We just know it's a big, huge extension, lots of money. It's the kind of thing where I don't know the Bills fans are shocked. It's a day to celebrate because every day to remember you have Josh Allen and you're living in that world is a day to feel good about the Bills. So not a surprise, but still big news.
For sure. Let's just start with the player and the situation. It is great to have the league MVP playing on your favorite team. For Bills fans, of course, it's pretty cool, but he's also really awesome at what he does, and he gives you a chance to win every year, of course. And as you just point out, like, that's just so comforting and awesome to know for every Bills fan out there. And now he's here for, and there was not a doubt he wasn't going to be here for a while longer. He had 4 years remaining on his deal. He's going to be here for at least 6 more years. And just knowing that he's the guy steering the ship, that they're still trying to win while he's in this window. And I believe that's the case. That's why the Bills are making these moves now. That's why you're seeing Von Miller get released now instead of June 1st and saving money, which we can get into right now to open up some cap space so they can make some moves. I believe the Bills they're going to keep trying to win as long as they have Josh Allen. And I think that's a great sign for Bills fans and great news for Bills fans, of course. So, yeah, no doubt about that. And then you look at the actual numbers. I mean, wow. It's a record-setting contract, $250 million guaranteed. No one's ever had $250 guaranteed before. That's the record-setting part. The other part of it, though, is pretty interesting, which is if you take the 330 and you spread it out, he's only making $55 million only. He's making $55 million a year, which is not a record. He's basically having a bit of a lower average per salary, and my guess is Josh Allen and the Bills got together and said, look, we want to make sure that you are taken care of. And Josh said, yeah, and I want to make sure that we can still have the ability to sign more players and do what we have to do going forward. He could have probably said, okay, well, I don't want to sign until I'm the highest in every single category, every single way. That would hamstring the Bills. That's not the case here. Yes, it's a lot of money. It represents less than 20% of the Bills' salary cap, which is actually, I believe I read 13th in the league for NFL quarterbacks right now, which is amazing.
Yep.
Right? I mean, like, you think about the fact that he signed this record deal, and yet he's still not counting nearly as much as a lot of quarterbacks are on their salary cap. And just so everybody's clear, it is a brand new deal. It is not a 6-year extension on top of the 4 years. He's not under contract for 10 more years. Like, let's say Greg Rousseau, he signed a 4-year extension. Terrell Bernard, 4-year extension. They're going to add that onto the last year of the deal, so they have 5 more years. For Josh, it is a brand new deal. No more 4 years. It's 6 years starting this year. And what they did was, I'm quite sure, we don't have the numbers yet, they're going to lower that salary cap from $44 million is what he was due in a cap this year. With the money they're going to give him in the brand new deal, I'm quite sure we're going to see something that's a lot lower for this year, and then it'll spike, going forward, and that will obviously help the Bills, this offseason.
Right. I would guess it gets cut in half at least, like into the 20s area. And we'll see about void years and that kind of stuff. So we see the Rousseau deal has a void year in 2030. And, we'll get an idea of what the Bills are wanting to do, how aggressive they're trying to be. They're locking up core pieces. Allen, of course, is the least controversial of anybody to lock up. So good to get that done. He's on his bachelor party playing these exclusive courses and also signing for $250 million guaranteed. Life is good if you're Josh Allen, so that's good.
Yeah, for sure. And we were just talking, Matt and I were talking last night, like, I don't know if this means Josh comes to town to sign the deal, or is he going to, are they going to FedEx it to him when he signs it? I really don't know how this is going to work, because we have heard, we have heard from Khalil Shakir and Reed Ferguson and Greg Rousseau from right here in Buffalo at the facility. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, if Josh is in town, but I don't know yet. We haven't heard anything yet. And you're right, Jared, he had his bachelor party recently. We saw that. He's obviously getting married at some point soon here. So it's a pretty good year to be Josh Allen. He just won MVP as well, obviously.
All right, next up, Rousseau. We'll hit the Bills' targets, and then we'll get on to the rest of the league stuff. Next up, Gregory Rousseau, contract extension for him. Also not a surprise, Sal, because they like Rousseau. He's a nice player, and this was another opportunity to lower a cap hit to kind of get involved this offseason.
This was always, as I've said to you guys, the kind of easiest one to do from the financial standpoint to clear space. The only question would be, are you comfortable giving Greg Rousseau $20 million or more per season? I've heard from a lot of fans who said they're not comfortable with that. They don't like that. He doesn't have double-digit sacks. But look, I think Greg Rousseau's a really, really good player. I think he does not more than just sacks. But obviously he's been a part of a defensive line that has not performed its best in the biggest of moments. He addressed that when he's with the media yesterday as well. But this is a deal that allows the Bills to keep a guy who, by the way, I mean, remember we used to talk about Tremaine Edmonds like this. Greg Rousseau is still 24 years old. He's turning 25 actually next month. He's still very young. He's good at what he does. And this is a deal that another year down the road, if you had a great year and you want to re-sign him, you're talking a lot more than probably what he signed for, here. The Bills as Jason, what's his name? I'm trying to think of his last name. I don't know his last name. Jason from Over the Cap is his name. It's Jason OTC on Twitter. Yeah. He pointed out last night, guys, he said the Bills are the most proactive team this offseason. This is what the Bills are doing. They're identifying their core. They're locking them up long term, and Greg Rousseau is one of their core. So what does it look like? Well, Spot Track has the numbers, just came out. Our guy Mike Giannetti, I just retweeted him, and I added some color to this, which is his cap hit goes from $13.3 million this year to 5.8. They're saving $7.5 million this year, roughly $7.5 million. Next year, this cap hit is only still $11.8 million. It's not until 2027 where it gets over $20 million. So, I understand fans who say he doesn't get these numbers or whatever, but look around the league, man. Look at what some of these guys are going to go for. Watch what Josh Sweat probably comes in at. And I know he had a really big year this year. He hasn't been an amazing guy in sacks. He was better this year. He's also 3 years older than Greg Rousseau. Let's see where his number comes in. Let's see where some of these defensive ends come in. I bet you over the next week or so, a lot of people are going to look at Greg Rousseau's contract and go, holy cow, I can't believe the Bills got him for $20 million a year, looking at some of these other guys and what they're signing for.
Right. You'd rather be living the life the Bills are, which is, we've talked about their need for elite players and difference makers, but there are teams, the Patriots just kind of did this yesterday, didn't they, with Harold Landry, where you're getting average players, subpar players even sometimes, and you have to pay them huge sums of money to come there versus the Bills. Sure, Rousseau, it's a lot, but it's 11th in the league. Okay, so the criticism of he doesn't get as many sacks as those guys is fair. He's also not getting paid as much as Trey Hendrickson and Max Crosby and the guys that get 16 sacks a year. So really, and that's been a theme, right? Even beyond Allen, Sal. If Benford comes in at some point this offseason or not, with Bernard, with Shakir, the Bills aren't, setting the market with any of these players' extensions.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. The only one I think that, we've been kind of thinking about that with is Christian Benford, and that's still out there. We don't know what they're going to do with Benford. He's going into the final year of his deal as well. But you're right, Joe. They're not setting the market. They're getting ahead of it. They're saying, we're identifying these guys. We want to settle in now because we're going to get good deals. And as we go down the road here, these guys would cost a lot more. And my response a lot of times to Bills fans is this as well. If you think, I can't believe they paid $20 million for Greg Rousseau, well, if you let Greg Rousseau walk, first of all, you could let him play out his $13 million, 50-year option. Then you're really hurting yourself for this year. You're going to really hurt the ability to try and sign guys this year. That's number one that's going to happen. Number two is who are you going to replace them with? Because if your idea is, well, they don't have enough really elite players, well, guess what? It's going to cost a lot more to sign an elite player, and they don't come along very often. Or you're going to replace them with somebody who's not as good. So you have to look at it from a lot of different standpoints and a lot of different angles as well. And you're right about that, Joe. So we'll see if they do anything with Christian Benford. Of course, James Cook out there as well. And then today at noon is when teams can start talking to the agents of pending free agents of other clubs.
Sal Capaccio joining us on the Western Hotline as the league year begins and the legal tampering period is underway. So Rousseau, Bernard, Shakir. Next up, Sal, Benford, Cook. We could throw Mac Hollins in here or Amari Cooper because they are unrestricted free agents, but the Bills are far from done.
Ty Johnson,
sure. Do you have a feel for? Let's start with Bernard and Cook because those two are not unrestricted free agents.
Benford and Cook.
Benford and Cook. Benford and Cook. Do you think? Would you expect to see another one kind of lined up, knock it down? Because again, if they're a proactive franchise, you could sign Christian Benford. It wouldn't be one that saves a ton of money on the cap this year, but you could lock in a player you think is really good and probably have that looking like a reasonable deal because you were once again proactive on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the question we don't know is, what does Christian Benford's side think? Right? Does Christian Benford feel, hey, I'm really good. I had an ascension last year. I want to get paid amongst the best corners in the league. And if that's the case, are the Bills willing to do something like that right now? And my guess would be maybe not. They really like him, but hey, you know what? We can ride this out and we can see what happens, and we can always franchise tag you if that's the case. Now, maybe I wouldn't doubt the Bills are interested in re-signing him, being proactive, approaching him now, but we don't know what his side thinks. We do know what James Cook's side thinks, right? And I think that's been the holdup, which is he wants $15 million a year. That's what he's been talking about. And I've always believed the Bills are just not going to pay James Cook $15 million a year. Does that mean it has to come in like that? No. Look, I'll be honest. I was surprised about the Myles Garrett news yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. You never know when something just says, okay, they agreed to something and he had a change of mind, a change of heart because look at this situation. That can always happen at any point. It would never shock me, to be honest with you. But we know what James Cook's side is at least saying he wants, and I just have a belief the Bills are not interested in paying that money. The Bills could literally let James Cook, unless he makes it messy and he doesn't play. Of course, that's a different scenario. They could let him play out the final year of his deal. They could franchise tag him for basically less than what he's asking for. The franchise tag this year for running backs is $13 million. So they could do that. We don't know what Christian Benford's side wants, and I think that's, it's always good, though, when you're kind of just in the weeds. You don't know. Maybe something pops up. But I think that's probably where the issue might be because the corner market is very tricky to gauge.
Also, this weekend, Sal, the Von Miller release. Are you buying at all? The cap move never seemed surprising at all, saving over 8. Are you buying at all the idea that was kind of out there in all the tweets about him being cut, that both sides being open to a return, that could actually come to fruition?
Here's what I think happened. When Von gets released, you see every one of the people reporting on it has the same wording at the end, right? Which is both sides are open to a reunion. And I'm sure that's the case, whereas it's, hey, we got to make this happen. What do we all say, guys? They have to do something with Von's contract. Whether it's a release or it's a restructure, they can't live with him at the $23+ million cap number. So they probably had this big discussion, and Von's made it clear he'd love to stay in Buffalo, but he knew that something had to be done with his contract. They probably had this discussion where they're like, look, we have to do this. And he understood and said, we'd love to have you back. And if you go out there and test the market and there's something you're comfortable with, that's great. Congratulations. If not, come on back and we can sign some sort of, much more minimum type of deal. Here's the issue, okay, with all of that. Von Miller's going to count right now $15 million on the Bills' salary cap by not being on the team. That's dead cap money. Mm-hmm. Even if he came back to the Bills for, let's say, $3 million, you're still counting the 15. That's weird. That is 100%. That is happening. You're getting 15 mil. It's not like you erase that $15 million. So whatever he would sign for would just be added onto it. They were not comfortable with him at 23. So you kind of have to say, okay, well, we know that he's not. They're not going to re-sign him for $8 or $7 million coming back.
Right.
Would it be 3? Would it be 4? You'd still save some money, but you're counting $15 million either way he's on the roster or not, plus whatever he were to sign.
Right. The way that the discussion could have gone is, hey, like we'd like to have you at 3. So basically, we need to work your contract out so that we save $5 million, and maybe Von thinks he can get more than $3 million on the open market, or 3 or 4, or whatever the number the Bills would want.
Yeah. So and maybe they're open to it. I thought the timing of it all, because Von very much could have been one of these candidates that was given permission to seek a trade or something. Like, that language has been used a million times in the last week.
And the guy just gets cut usually.
Yeah, and the fact that it went this long into the game, that speaks to me that they at least were trying to do something, and maybe it can't be done, and they're gonna be friendly about it, because that's another thing about the Bills. I always want to point out that Brandon Beane and the Bills, the way they run their show, they do not burn bridges for the most part.
No.
It's very rare. So, guy leaves, they're going to say nice things, and sure, we'd be open to a return because they're gracious and they are professionals in this. And I think that has value.
Yeah, and we know the relationship Von has with the team, and especially Brandon Beane. Von has made it clear he wants to be an NFL general manager someday. He's shadowed Brandon Beane at the Combine. He talks with him a lot about these kinds of things. They have a very, very good working professional relationship. We know what the Bills feel about him as a player on this team, what he meant to the locker room, what he still would mean to the locker room, the young guys coming in. So I'm interested to see what happens here. Von is always he has so much love in his heart for the Denver Broncos. I don't know if that's something the Broncos would want to do. It would never shock me if we saw, that the Broncos and Von Miller are reuniting in some capacity, right? I mean, that's something that could be out there. I don't know, but it's just the way it feels. But otherwise, we'll see. Maybe he does look out and nobody really wants to pay him, and he says, hey, I want to come back to Buffalo on a $3 million deal or something.
Yeah. How about Myles Garrett, Sal?
Yeah. I mean, I'm stunned. I shouldn't say that. I was very surprised when it happened. You're never stunned or shocked when something really happens in the NFL these days when it comes to money. But when there were so many people going, "Oh, what a surprise! No way! We all knew this was going to happen." I really thought this was going to get bad. I thought either he was going to get traded, or he was going to make it very, ugly for them. So for all of a sudden that to show up yesterday, I was surprised. And obviously, for all the talk we've had here, and it carried us for a while, which was nice. Now Max Crosby off the board. Now Myles Garrett off the board. Guys are flying off the board. For all the talk that we had, it would have been nice to do something like that. Holy cow, guys, $40 million a year. He's their Josh Allen. That's what he is. I mean, he doesn't touch the ball every play, but he is one of the best players in the NFL. He's certainly a future Hall of Famer. He's still maybe the best defensive player in the league. So I get why they would want to keep him. But, wow, that is a lot of money for a non-quarterback and a defensive player.
How good an idea do you think Trey Hendrickson is in comparison? Because is he now the automatic number one dream idea if a Bills fan's trying to get an elite pass rusher here?
Sure. I mean, if you really want an elite pass rusher, I think that would be, the next guy up where you'd want. I mean, this guy has hit 17 and a half sacks each of the last 2 years, by the way, guys, right? I mean, he's incredible at what he does. Look at that money, though, that Myles Garrett just signed for. Look at what Max Crosby signed for. Are the Bills willing to be able to play in that pool? I'm not really sure that they'd be able to be quite honest. Maybe they find, look, there's always a way. They signed Von Miller a couple years ago to $120 million when we were told that they wouldn't be able to really go out and sign a lot of guys or have a lot of money. So, yeah, sure, that would be something that would be great for the Bills, but I just don't know if you're going to be able to, pay him the kind of money he's going to command on the open market.
All right. Who do we forget? Mac Hollins?
Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams
is gone.
How about how about
Metcalf
DK
idea.
Metcalf?
Yeah, DK Metcalf to Pittsburgh. It is big money for Metcalf.
There is, by the way, Pittsburgh. There's a Pittsburgh Aaron Rodgers report from Schefter in the last 7 minutes. So,
Rodgers, Pickens, Metcalf, Tomlin.
Put a camera on that locker room.
I just want to. The number one thing I always want to say about this is maybe someday Mike Tomlin will lose the reputation for always running the tightest ship, because Pittsburgh loves to get these receivers that might be a little bit fiery and then get mad about the fact that they're fiery. Like, I'm good with that. I don't care. But Pittsburgh, it's just always toxic relationships with their own receivers. And if they add Rodgers to the mix, it might even get worse. Like, who knows?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're right, though, Joe. Let's do Hard Knocks with the Steelers if that happens, right?
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be a little that'd be pretty fun. So today, just to give everybody a little bit of the mechanics of how everything's working here now, So today at noon is when what they call legal tampering period opens. That's because teams can call the agents of pending free agents. Now, the Bills can go out and sign their own free agents at any time, like they have already. They can re-sign a Mac Hollins. They can re-sign a Ty Johnson. These are the guys going to free agency today. But other teams can't call their agents or talk to them until noon today. We all know how this works. Things start happening and people start talking at the combine and, word gets out. So that's why you're going to see deals get reported pretty early here. That's at noon today. Starting on Wednesday at 4 p.m. is when the teams can actually talk to the player, bring him to the facility, take a physical, sign the player. They can't have contact with the player before then. And, oh, by the way, I want to report, guys, this does feel like the Mario Williams type weather year. I mean, this is a great time to bring a guy to the facility.
Right.
This is going to be like 60-something degrees later this week, right? You want to bring somebody to Buffalo and show them how great it is in March? This is a great year to do it.
Yeah.
Is today when we... I'm trying to remember how this usually gets reported. Is today when we get the...
Compensatory picks?
No, not that, but we get reports of, this team and this player have agreed in principle to...
Yes.
But even though they're not supposed to talk money, right? I forget how it goes.
No, they can talk money.
They can talk money? Okay.
That's exactly.
Okay.
Starting at noon today, the agent can negotiate whatever he wants for the player.
Okay.
They just can't talk to the player himself.
So we will see, almost undoubtedly, with at least some players, we're going to see today, this team and this player are going to sign on Wednesday.
Yes, and let's remember, we have had over the years, didn't this happen with Anthony Barr? We have had over the years, a player agrees with a team, but come Wednesday... I mean, it's like college right now, where a kid says, "I'm going to your school," and then he gets a school continues to recruit him and says, "No, we still want you to come here." Right? That can happen. It's rare, but it does happen where a player agrees to go join a team, and then he actually signs with another team because word gets out, and the other team continues to recruit him, so to speak. So we'll see what happens.
All right, Sal. Have your phone ready. Don't turn it on silent.
Yeah.
It's a busy week, and we've got lots to get to as it goes.
Yeah, it is. And obviously with the Sabres trade as well, we'll be on top of that. We have the great Bruce Garrett joining me on Extra Point Show today to talk about the Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris trade. So we'll do it all today. Sabres trade from Friday, Bills, obviously what's happening over the weekend and heading into Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, Sal.
You got it, guys.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. He'll be busy these next couple days. Who's out there? Who's available? A lot of teams locking things up. There's just a Patriots trade. They traded a defensive tackle to the Saints for a 7th-round pick. So, a lot
Three defensive tackle moves this morning.
Yeah.
2 signings and a trade.
A lot of movement.